The United States of America has long had a complicated relationship with association football, or soccer as it is more commonly known. Soccer was actually immensely popular in America during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, up to the so-called soccer war between the USFA and the ASL, before the Great Depression applied the final nail in the coffin for professional soccer in the United States. Attempts to repopularize the world's most popular sport in the world's richest nation showed promise particularly in the late 1970s, when the likes of Franz Beckenbauer, Johan Cruyff and Pelé arrived in the land of opportunity. But it would all come crashing down. The NASL tried to run before it could walk, and when the United States was hit with a recession, the rapid expansion and high wages paid by NASL clubs was brutally exposed, eventually leading to the league folding in 1985. For the second time, an economic crisis had put an end to professional soccer in the USA. Then came the 1994 World Cup, world football's biggest tournament, hosted by the United States, with the assurance given to FIFA that America would create a new professional league. In 1996, Major League Soccer was born, initially with just 10 teams, but today the fledgling league is home to 28 teams, 25 from the US and 3 from Canada, with further expansion in the works. In an attempt to learn from the failures of the NASL, the MLS has pretty strict wage caps, with the exception of designated players, who earn significantly disproportionate salaries in relation to their peers. Originally known as the Beckham Rule, the officially titled Designated Player Rule dictates that each MLS team is allowed to sign 3 players who operate outside of their regulated salary cap. Naturally, David Beckham was the MLS's first designated player, signing a $6.5 million a year deal with the MLS, which, incredibly, some 15 years on, is more than any current MLS player earns now. Zlatan Ibrahimovic is the highest paid MLS player of all time, having been paid $7.2 million a year during his time at Beckham's old club LA Galaxy. But in today's video, we're going to take a closer look at the interesting highest earners right now. Here are the 7 highest paid players in the MLS. 7th, Jozy Altiro. There are some MLS exports who have gone on to make a real impact in the Premier League, whether that be Tim Howard, Clint Dempsey, or even Jack Harrison at Leeds United right now. Elsewhere in Europe, there have been few finer examples of the MLS's ability to produce players worthy of lighting up the very biggest of stages in world football than Alphonso Davies. I provide those caveats, however, because there have also been a litany of players who have enjoyed great success within the MLS whilst looking absolutely hopeless here in England. Jozy Altiro is one of them, having scored a pretty pathetic 2 goals in 70 Premier League games for Hull City and Sunderland. It should be noted, in case anyone watching this video knows nothing about Altidore, that he is a centre forward and not a goalkeeper. I could understand if there was some confusion in light of his Premier League goal-scoring record. In fairness, Altidore did score goals for fun in the Netherlands at AZ Alkmaar, and there were times at Hull City where I thought he had the makings of a half-decent player. He just suffered from an abject lack of end product. In the MLS, though, Altidore has often proven to be lethal. All told, the 32-year-old has scored 77 goals and made 25 assists in 176 games for the New York Red Bulls and Toronto FC, and he has been one of the division's highest-paid players ever since he returned to the division to join Toronto in exchange for Jermaine Defoe in January 2015. Altidore's base salary is worth $2.161 million, which is only the 9th highest in the MLS, but his guaranteed compensation for 2021 was $3.062 million, or just shy of $60,000 a week, which was the 7th highest in the entire league. Altidore struggled a little at Toronto in 2020 and 2021, and at the time of this recording, he is being heavily linked with a move to New England Revolution. 6th, Josef Martinez. Another MLS striker who has previously played in Europe, Josef Martinez played for Young Boys, FC Thun and Torino before making his move to the MLS in 2017, aged only 24. Martinez scored 5 goals in 3 games during a brief spell on loan at Atlanta United before signing on a permanent basis, and that set the tone for what was to come. Last September, Martinez set the record as the fastest player in MLS history to hit 100 goals in all competitions, doing so in only 125 games. The Venezuelan hasn't had it all his own way in Georgia though. Back in 2020, he suffered an ACL tear that would rule him out for the entire season. Though he hasn't quite managed to bounce back to his very best just yet, with 12 goals in 29 games last season, Martinez is still among the most highly regarded forwards in the MLS. Prior to that setback, he made the MLS Best 11 in each of his first 3 seasons in the league. He won both the Golden Boot and MVP awards in 2018, and he was being heavily linked with a return to Europe. In fairness, even before tearing his ACL, Martinez had always insisted that he was content in Atlanta. It's not difficult to see why. Martinez obtained a green card in 2018, he is clearly settled in Atlanta, and he struggled previously on the other side of the Atlantic. What's more, he is among the very best paid soccer players in the United States. Martinez's $3.5 million a year base salary is the 7th highest in the division, but his guaranteed compensation of close to $3.9 million is enough to put him 6th in the league for the 2021 campaign. 5th, Luiz Arohujo. A much more recent arrival to the MLS than either of our 2 previous inclusions, Luiz Arohujo is a teammate of Josef Martinez's at Atlanta United, having joined the club from Lille in 2021 for a reported fee of $12 million. That makes Arohujo the 5th most expensive MLS signing of all time, with 4 out of the 5 most expensive signings in the league's history having been bought by Atlanta United. Thiago Almada is the league's most expensive recruit, also signed by Atlanta United, for $16 million only this month, meaning that all 3 of Atlanta's designated players, Martinez, Arohujo, and Almada, are Latin Americans. Almada's salary is still unknown at this stage, due to him only just having arrived, but at the age of 20, it is unlikely that he will be among the league's very highest earners, despite his hefty price tag just yet. Luiz Arohujo certainly is though, with a $3.6 million base salary and a $3.94 million guaranteed compensation for 2021, which represents a sizable increase on what he was reportedly earning at Lille. A gifted wide man, capable of playing on either the right or left side of the pitch, Arohujo has shown flashes of brilliance at Atlanta United, but one doubts that he could earn his current salary at this moment in time anywhere in Europe. Arohujo was part of the mass exodus out of Lille last summer, following the club's surprise Ligue 1 title win, along with the likes of Jonathan Okone, who joined Fiorentina, Boubakary Soumare, who headed to Leicester City, and goalkeeper Mike Maignan, who replaced Gianluigi Donnarumma at AC Milan. 4th, Alejandro Pozuelo. Alejandro Pozuelo previously played in both the Premier League and in La Liga, though it wouldn't surprise me if plenty of English and Spanish football fans barely remembered him at all. I must admit that I do, though only because I can remember him putting in an impressive display against Valencia in the Europa League, in addition to having made a little cameo appearance against Hull City. Both of those games came during Pozuelo's single season at Swansea City in the 2013-14 campaign under Michael Laudrup, but at almost the exact time as Laudrup was sacked and replaced by Gary Monk, Pozuelo suffered a thigh injury that pretty much ruled him out for the rest of the season. I thought Pozuelo showed some clever touches and a nice little bit of skill on the limited occasions in which I saw him, but it seemed as though Gary Monk wasn't particularly keen whether he was injured or not. Pozuelo's time at Swansea was sandwiched by equally disjointed stints at Real Betis and Rayo Vallecano, before he finally found a happy home at Genk in the Belgian Pro League. There, Pozuelo played 177 games in 4 seasons, making a real mark before signing for Toronto FC. Now a teammate of Jozy Altiro's, presuming that the American hasn't already signed for New England by the time this video comes out, Pozuelo was outstanding in his first 2 seasons in the MLS. He made the MLS Best 11 in both 2019 and in 2020, but he struggled to have the same kind of impact last season as Toronto slumped to a second from bottom place finish in the overall MLS table. Nonetheless, Pozuelo's salary still reflects the fact that he is among the most highly rated players in the division, with a base salary of $3.8 million and a guaranteed 2021 compensation of $4.693 million, both ranking as the 4th highest in the league. Third, Gonzalo Higuain. It will come as no surprise to anyone that Gonzalo Higuain is among the highest paid players in Major League Soccer. Indeed, some may even be surprised that he doesn't take top spot. That is because Higuain is one of the most expensive footballers of all time, having joined Juventus for £75.3 million in the summer of 2016. That was the same summer in which Juventus sold Paul Pogba for what was then a world record-breaking £89 million, and they immediately reinvested 84% of that fee on Higuain, as the mathematicians among you will have already worked out in your heads before I clarified that figure. Despite an impressive debut campaign in Turin, Juventus would most likely come to regret paying such an enormous fee and handing Gonzalo Higuain such a blockbuster contract at that time. Higuain had scored 91 goals in 146 games across 3 seasons with Napoli prior to joining Juventus and had starred for Real Madrid before that. But he was already 28 at the time of the move, and his goal scoring had already tailed off by his second season at the Allianz Stadium. In the summer of 2018, Juventus signed Cristiano Ronaldo and Higuain was sent out on loan to Chelsea. Higuain only managed 8 goals in 32 league games in his final season with Juventus before signing for MLS newcomers Inter Miami, leading to the old lady terminating his contract. But he still would not be short of offers. David Beckham was seemingly able to offer the most attractive package to the Argentine with a $5.1 million base salary and $5.79 million 2021 guaranteed compensation, no doubt contributing towards that. Miami also signed Higuain's brother Federico Higuain, who played 29 times for them last season before retiring, and he now serves as the assistant manager of Miami's feeder club Fort Lauderdale FC. Federico wasn't paid quite as much as Gonzalo in 2021, receiving a total compensation of $81,375 to be exact, which is more than 70 times less than his brother. Gonzalo only managed to score 1 goal in 9 games for Miami in 2020, but he chipped in with 12 in 30 in 2021, making him last season's 13th highest scorer in the MLS, despite having the division's 3rd highest salary. Second, Javier Hernandez. A very familiar face to most viewers, almost regardless of where you're watching this video from. Javier Hernandez is a legend in Mexico, he is adored at Manchester United, and he has also starred for Real Madrid in Spain and Bayer Leverkusen in Germany. Hernandez, who is often referred to as Chicharito, made his move stateside in January 2020, following a short and unsuccessful stint with Sevilla. At the time, I went on the record as saying that he was almost the perfect MLS signing. A good age, a good attitude, and someone with a proven track record of scoring goals for fun in leagues that are, with all due respect, more highly thought of than the MLS. I think I might even have predicted that he will be more prolific than his predecessor, Zlatan Ibrahimovic. I looked a bit daft then, in 2020, when Hernandez scored just 2 goals in 12 games for LA Galaxy, threatening to become one of the MLS's all-time great flops. Thankfully, for both me, him, and especially LA Galaxy I suppose, Hernandez salvaged his reputation last season, and then some, scoring 17 goals in just 22 games. That put him 3rd in the race for the MLS Golden Boot, and gave him the 2nd most impressive goals per game ratio in the entire league, trailing only Cristian Arango at LAFC, who scored 14 goals in 17 games. So, there was very little to split the two. Enjoying a decent pre-season campaign at this moment in time, Hernandez will be hoping to go one better in 2022, looking to stay fit and win the MLS Golden Boot. Hernandez is certainly being paid the kind of salary that one would associate with one of the league's best players, with his base salary of $6 million being the highest in all of the MLS. Meanwhile, his guaranteed compensation, which is also $6 million, puts him second only to the man up next. First, Carlos Vela. Making it an all-Mexican top 2, if you're thinking that there is one pretty notable exception to this 7, there is a fairly notable caveat or disclaimer coming up in just a few seconds' time. Carlos Vela is officially the highest paid player in the MLS though, with a base salary of $4.5 million, which is $1.5 million less than his compatriot Javier Hernandez, but a total guaranteed compensation for 2021 of $6.3 million, which is the highest in the division. In fairness, Vela is, without doubt, one of the greatest MLS players of all time. Since signing for Los Angeles FC in 2018, the former Arsenal man has been absolutely outstanding. His 2019 season is among the greatest peaks that we have seen from any player playing domestically in the United States, at least during the 21st century, as he scored 38 goals in only 36 games, cutting inside most often from the right flank onto his wonderful left foot. That should perhaps come as a little surprise, since Vela had looked very impressive in La Liga for Real Sociedad prior to his move to Los Angeles, and the fact that he made that move before the age of 30 came as a surprise to some. Unfortunately, COVID and both a ligament and a hamstring injury have stopped Vela in his tracks, though he has continued to impress when fit. Last season, he was restricted to 5 goals in 20 games, a far cry from his majestic 2019 form, and he will be aiming to return to the MLS Best 11 for 2022. Vela's contract was actually up last December, but LA took the decision to exercise his 1-year extension, and with Vela now the highest earner in the league, they will be hoping that he can repay that faith that they've shown in him and vindicate their decision. Now, I did mention a caveat and disclaimer regarding a very notable absentee, and those of you who follow the MLS may well know what I'm talking about. Whilst Gonzalo Higuain ranked third in the official published accounts regarding MLS salaries, fellow French-born former Juventus man Blaise Matuidi was listed as having a salary of just $1.5 million. I say just, clearly that is an awful lot of money, but it is almost a quarter of what Higuain earns. That raised one or two suspicions, especially since it meant that he came in just below the $1.6125 million threshold that means you have to register a player as a designated player. And Inter Miami already had the maximum number of designated players, 3, that a team is allowed at any one time. It later emerged, or Inter Miami were caught I should say, having cooked the books a bit. It turned out that David Beckham's MLS franchise had actually had 5 designated players, 2 more than the maximum limit. The MLS fined Inter Miami $2 million and hit them with unprecedented sanctions, though they are not the first Major League Soccer franchise to be caught engaging in some inventive accounting procedures. When Miami were forced to disclose their real finances, they admitted that Blaise Matuidi's 2.5-year contract with the club is actually worth between $13 to $14 million, so $5.2 to $5.6 million a year. That means that Matuidi is, in actual fact, the 4th highest earner in the MLS, and should slot in between Alejandro Pozuelo and his teammate Gonzalo Higuain, knocking Jozy Altiro out of the 7 altogether. But I wanted the video to be based on the officially published MLS numbers for 2021 so that they were indisputable. It also means that Inter Miami most likely have the highest wage bill in the entire MLS, yet they have finished 19th and 20th in their first 2 MLS campaigns. So that is it for today's video, a rare MLS video, but I like to make these every now and then since there are a fair few Americans who watch my videos. I hope you enjoyed it, American or otherwise. Hit the like button if that was the case, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and make sure that you are subscribed and have notifications turned on for HITC Sevens.